Hi! Before I get into the video, I'd like to just remind everyone to please be kind, considerate, and compassionate in the comment section. This video is a very personal topic, and the person sharing their story is being incredibly open and vulnerable, and it's not easy to share this sort of stuff about oneself, so I want to commend them on their courage to share their story. And so I just want to remind everyone, please, again, be kind, compassionate, and considerate when thinking about and leaving a comment. Thank you.
The same thing that is slowly killing me is also the reason I am alive. A paradox with a deadly outcome, a dance with death herself. The music was so beautiful, we dance and dance while she whispers sweet words in my ear. I don't want to stop. The light around me fades away, but are still together and it feels safe. All will be okay, she whispers. I grab her tightly and she smiles. We keep on dancing into the darkness. Never felt so safe while my body slowly fades away. Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. So today's video is going to be very different from my regular content. I mentioned in a video a while ago that a follower / online friend reached out to me and offered to give the male perspective, or at least their male perspective, on eating disorders. This person, it seems, has struggled for a long time with an eating disorder and just all the challenges that come along with it. And we've supported and encouraged each other over the years, actually. So basically what I did was I compiled a list of questions for a man to answer, and just kind of to go deeper into a side of eating disorders that obviously I can't really speak on because it is not my lived experience. I've watched documentaries, I've watched videos, I have read things regarding male sufferers of eating disorders, but I've never really had a direct connection to someone willing to share their perspective. So this is going to be very different. I sent this individual, who will remain anonymous, a list of questions. They sent back their answers with the time difference, because this person does not live in the same country, let alone continent, as me. Just doing an actual, interview was going to be very difficult with all that. So instead, this is the best plan B, I guess. My plan is, and in editing, that is when this will come to fruition or not, I'm going to read my question, read their answer, and then I will probably splice in voice over any added information I want to add, I guess. Keep the conversation going in a way. I'm going to preface this by saying this individual is from Europe, so not only are there noticeable differences between eating disorders among men and women, this person made a point to mention that they've noticed a cultural difference as well. So we'll dive into that as we go along. I'm going to be reading almost exactly what they wrote, and given that they are from another country, probably speak another language, this is going to be a little bit of broken English, but the point will come across. Let's begin. I have rambled on and on. All right. When do you think men or boys become aware of their bodies as something perceived by others? How and why? For me, it was when I transferred schools. I had a little baby fat and not a growth spurt, and it started with bullying. That, on a basis of emotional neglect and abuse, was the trigger for me. What I noticed is that at the moment the age men and boys become aware is probably around 12, the average age for middle school. There is a whole cultural shift that you can only be happy and have a partner if you have a six-pack and big arms.
I think it's very important to remember that the idea that men have to look a certain way to attract a partner is perpetuated and pushed predominantly by other men. These days, it is these online personalities who have no personality and have had little to no success in actually maintaining a healthy relationships. These are the men that young boys and young men are turning to for relationship advice when these are not the role models or people that these young guys should even be idolizing. Turns out even men admit it's for the approval of other men that they work so hard in the gym. While women have said time and time again, a six-pack is not necessary for you to be attractive. You can be the most fit, jacked, muscular man in the world, and women will still not like you.
Schools are facing multiple problems, phones in the classes. Children are being bombarded with perfect bodies and how to get them by yourself. Media is a big part of the problem. Boys and men have unrealistic goals. They want to look like The Rock at age 16. Another problem is SARMs. Because we have a lot of research labs for a small country, it is hard to make laws against it, because a lot are being studied for things like heart problems and our ever-growing elderly population. Another factor is that they have raised the drinking age from 16 to 18. Drugs are here now cheaper than booze. But you also have a big group that can't go out and start going to the gym. Depending on the gym, bro culture is big, and PEDs are openly taken. The more expensive gyms have less of this. Still, there are people using, but more open also have the side effects. The country where I live is high on the list of drug producers. This is also for designer drugs and SARMs. But our education system is not up to date and stuck in the era of drugs are all bad. And it goes really quick here. Since September 3, CMC is banned now. There is 2 MMCs. I think they meant MMC is 3 MMC is banned now. There's 2 MMC on the market as a replacement. And middle school is competitive and gym is graded and bullying is a problem. Combine that with the factor that the eating disorder is perceived as a girl thing. One of the criteria for help was loss of period and BMI under 18. It is only recent that they are changing it, so there's a lot of shame. Also, boys and men are pushed to man up, so a lot goes under the radar and makes it even worse. It is suggested that bulimia is a way bigger problem for boys than previously expected. In the locker room, it is not too uncommon to throw up before a match. That way you are lighter on the field. Also, for sports like boxing in the junior league, they are imitating the YouTubers and Instagram and pros with water loss pills, laxatives, and fasting to get in lower body weight class without supervision. These boys are between the ages of 10 and 18 because scouts will also be on the sideline and they want to be like the famous footballers.
I think it goes without saying athletics and eating disorders are closely related, one influencing the other, whether that's athletics influencing the development of an eating disorder or the eating disorder influencing a person's strive and motivation in athleticism. It's one of those things that depending on your sport, you might become fixated on either being the best or just excelling in general. You get fixated on the idea of, well, if I was smaller, I'd be faster, for example, or if I look just a little bit leaner, I will impress judges. These are just examples. These are very real thoughts that athletes probably think about on a daily basis. And this then influences their eating choices. It's just us normal people, we probably think that athletes have like the healthiest relationships with their body and food. Well, that's not really the case for a lot of athletes. And that is just a reality that, again, us normal people just need to accept that they are also just normal people with the same struggles as the rest of us.
Walk me through the thought process that leads up to making behavioral changes, negative behavioral changes, or start to develop the eating disorder. And when and how did you realize I have a problem? For me, it took a while. My personal process started with moving around, and my mom was not in a good relationship. I have the so-called classic start, mental and physical abuse by my mother's partner for almost a year, and at the same time I got bullied at school. So it was the only thing I could control, and it would make him mad if I didn't finish my plate. It was my way of payback. In my mind, if I get stronger, leaner, skinnier, maybe I will be healthy and loved. Sometimes I just wanted to be so small that I would disappear. I started working out more and more, and the food changes came later. It started small. Instead of waiting at the bus stop in front of my house, I would walk to the next one. An hour workout routine slowly became 2 to 3, and sometimes when the nightmares came, I would go again to get tired. After that, I started to change my diet. This was between the ages of 12 and 16. I went off to college and worked in a restaurant, bar, boat rental, and also worked in a kitchen. Not eating for 3 days was normal for me, coffee and cigarettes. I think I was about 21 when I realized I had a problem. I was not able to maintain that level of not eating, and I collapsed at home with an epileptic attack. And that was the point Anna introduced her friend Mia, and I started doing a lot of the thing I'm still ashamed for and still am battling to this day.
I've mentioned it before, but it's always important to readdress this fact that hopping from one disorder to another is so common. You can almost guarantee a switch from anorexia to bulimia, especially if you experience a severe health attack of some sort. If that occurs and the individual hasn't yet addressed the anorexia, they can easily put the anorexia aside and pick up bulimia and or orthorexia or an exercise addiction.
At the time I asked for help, there was nothing for a man, and the one time I got was in a group with only women, and the problems are the same but also different. I've been to inpatient and that sucks, but they could really just keep me alive and healthy enough to go home.
I definitely agree that sometimes it seems like a lot of inpatient facilities don't actually care all that much about helping people get better. It seems like these facilities and workers are not thinking in terms of the bigger picture. They need to be asking themselves, how can we help these patients not get admitted again?
What would you say is the eating disorder that is predominant amongst men? Over here, there are two different types that are dominant. One is bulimia. The other one is bigorexia, getting so lean as possible or as big as possible. The big problem is it is encouraged. The fact people die of heart failure at 40 is overlooked. Walk me through the thoughts of realizing you have an eating disorder. I've heard from a lot of guys there's a lot of denial and embarrassment because eating disorders are a female issue. This is being reinforced by the so-called creeps online pretending to have an eating disorder to connect with young girls. For a guy to say you have an ED, you have the brand, it's a girl thing, and you're a creep. So a lot of men suffer in silence. This is noticeable in the high suicide rate of men between the ages of 20 and 35. So denial is a big thing, combined with a lot of fear. Trying to get help as a man is nearly impossible. It's sad but true. The culture here, don't complain and just carry on, makes it even harder. We look really progressive, but not on the mental health aspect. This is becoming a bigger problem that they've privatized the mental health care because the taboo and stigma, they are more complex and expensive. The average waiting list is 1.5 years just for an intake, and a lot may back down in that time because Anna is telling them it is not as bad as you think it is. You have it under control. Other people need help more than you. Those are lies Anna's telling you. 1.5 years is a long time for Anna to talk you down off of getting help. And factor in we don't have a man eating disorder center in the country. You will be put in with the girls. That doesn't help in opening up and sharing.
By not creating a safe environment where men feel like they can be open and vulnerable about these deep-seated issues that they're having, we're just reinforcing this idea of the toxic traits of masculinity, the idea that a man must always be strong and stoic in all circumstances, even when it's at his own detriment.
Did you seek professional help or treatment? Yes, and still to this day, I am under supervision of my general doctor and a few other people. Also, because I have permanent damage because of anorexia, I have to get my blood work done 2 times a year and have medication for the rest of my life. My intestines are lazy. My digestive tract is damaged due to bulimia. I had multiple treatments and it didn't really help. A few times inpatient, that was hell. No jokes, still have nightmares from it because they are understaffed. When I had a meltdown during moments, I was put in isolation, no clothes except a paper dress. I wish that someone would just sat next to me and talked instead of isolation. I still find it difficult to talk about it, so I'll leave it at this.
That sounds absolutely horrifying. I can't imagine how traumatic that is. You're already in a very vulnerable and on edge state of mind. You're already distrusting of yourself, and now it's almost impossible to trust the people employed to help you. It just feels like one thing stacked on top of each other, and it's incredibly overwhelming on top of already being overwhelmed.
What are the outside factors or forces influencing men to hate their bodies enough to develop an eating disorder? I hate to say it, but social media, adverts and peer pressure are a big contributor. You see it everywhere, and it's targeted at the youth. Soccer is big here, and it is all about the six-pack. And the taboo around abuse with men doesn't help. There is a lot of shame, and you will be bullied for it. Doesn't matter if the perp is a man or a woman. It is even in court hard to prove a man is a victim. Doesn't matter if it is mental abuse, physical or sexual. And an ED is a way to cope with it. So simply, it is the focus on being abused, and if something happens, you aren't automatically believed because you are a man.
This just reinforces the characteristic of toxic masculinity that pushes the idea that men have to be strong 100% of the time. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Just the stoic statue that to the outside doesn't feel. But that just leads to so much unnecessary pressure and guilt and shame, because at the end of the day, behind closed doors, men aren't stoic. Okay? They just aren't. No one is. We all fall apart sometimes.
How is your mindset around exercise and working out twisted? How are you able to reset your mindset around those things now? Honestly, I struggle a lot. I try to learn a lot, and I kind of made my peace with I will have the Anna voice in my head for the rest of my life. It is still twisted. I can work out for 8 hours and still keep going. I use alarms to make me stop. To be really honest, I had 3 near-death situations related to anorexia with hospitalization and all. I was fixed up and sent back home. What do you see as the biggest similarity and biggest differences between eating disorders among men and women? How you twist and turn it is pretty much the same, only men hide it more or are not believed. We both do the classic and weird, gross things. If I say always use 2 bags, you probably know enough. The biggest difference, I think, is that men gravitate towards hard drugs to numb the feelings and get energy. In my country, it is dirt cheap.
I wish I had asked more questions diving deeper into the cultural differences. However, it's interesting to point out that no matter really where we're located or where we start, the likelihood we all end up in the same place, i.e. making decisions we never thought we'd make, like the gross habits we develop, it's the same end result for most of us. Like, this person is thousands and thousands of miles away on a different continent, in a different country, grew up in 2 different cultures. We grew up in 2 different families, 2 different schooling, different backgrounds, all of these differences, and yet, we both fell into the same patterns, we made some of the same decisions, and we ended up roughly in the same spot. Even in our darkest struggles, we're all still connected by this very thin thread. Eating disorders do not discriminate.
From your own experience and journey, what do you want men and young men still growing up to know? Talk about it, how hard it is, and it is a life-changing path, and it will haunt you the rest of your life, and you will never be perfect. It will suck you in so deep that you don't care if you live or die. You can be damaging your body forever. Your ability to have kids and become older than 40 is a challenge. Anorexia, bulimia, bigorexia, they all take such a toll on your body, and it is the most deadly mental illness. Your body will give up on you or your mind, and depression, anxieties are all too common. I am a 30-plus anorexic. I have seen so many men and women having an early grave, I can't count it anymore. Also, I have seen lots of people returning after they recovered. There is no quick fix, and it is a dangerous path. Seek help if possible, as soon as possible. And if you are in a help group, if something feels off about someone, block them. To all the men and women, boys and girls, you are not alone.
Are you willing to expand more on your eating disorder story?
For me specifically, it was just after my mom and I moved in with her boyfriend. In that house was always candy, with the result I gained some weight. After a few months, his true self showed. This was verbal abuse and physical. I also took everything to protect my younger brother. He always came home angry, and mistakes were not allowed or criticized. And he went on and on about my weight, so did the children at my school. This is a lower grade school for us, grade 4, so age 7 or 8. Beside that, I am a little special. I was a slow learner and took the punches for that, but would also take blame for things my brother did even while we were not getting along. So food and eating was something I could control. I was lonely and food was filling the void. Around the ages of 11 and 12, we go to middle school. That was rough. I was scared for all the bullying before, because I was a little shy. That didn't help. I had no close friends to talk to, and that is when anorexia came to my life. Sounds weird, but I would talk to her at night. But it made me motivated to lose weight. This was the motivation to work on myself. So around the age of 12, I started with throwing up, saying no to food. It's still hard to believe, using big vests to hide food in my pockets. I lost 20 kilograms in less than 6 months.
Eventually, my mom started to notice the changes and took me multiple times to the doctor. The doctor was no help and blamed puberty for the drastic physical changes to my body. Anorexia wasn't even on their radar as a possibility because of the stereotype that only girls develop anorexia. My mom was worried about how fast I was losing weight, thinking it was some health defect or something more serious than just puberty changes.
After school, it became my life. Lying to friends I just ate at home or planning things around dinner time, my activities increased. Then I turned 16 and was allowed to go to the gym. There I wanted to be as strong as possible, but also thin. That has put my body under enormous stress, and I have to take medication for my stomach and lower intestines for the rest of my life. This was the first time I had a small voice saying you have a problem. So I went to the doctor and was sent home with the line, just eat more. I started having the symptoms of anorexia. I got the light hairs on my arms, lost my hair, I had heart problems. My heart rate was under 40, and I had a few epileptic attacks. Vision and concentration problems. The amount of caffeine I took in a day, almost equivalent to 80 cups of coffee a day. That was the only way I was still standing. I have some scars on my organs from this, luckily nothing too damaged. When I ended up with alcohol and medication poisoning and wasn't allowed to walk and had to stay in, I really realized it, but it took years, around my mid-20s. But with the stigma, I got the wrong treatments for years. For a personality disorder, whole kind of different ones. I once asked face-to-face, I have an eating disorder, help me, and I had to stand on a scale. BMI was okay, and I didn't meet a lot of the other criteria, but they were really female focused, like losing your period. After a while and going to another more heavy intensive gym, something changed in me. I want to be the strongest and the best. Think about gym sessions of 8 hours or 2 times a day, taking protein and really going for it. Since that moment, the war in my head started between this and bulimia. For example, in 1 year, I gained 25 kilograms in 6 months and also lost 25 kilograms because of anorexia was still there. The process was and is filled with a lot of self-hate. And I have the scares that numbed the pain for that moment, but now are an extra hurdle, like getting intimate with someone. And the fucked up thing is I still have the urge. It is like an addiction. When I eat for my feelings or exercise too little, I still have that voice that only goes quiet when I paint my canvas with the silver. I've probably forgotten a lot, but still I find it hard to write down. In addition to whatever I add during editing, I want to end with that is an incredible point that I don't know if I really ever touched on too deeply about this sense of security that the eating disorder deceives you with. I've talked about how there's this fear of losing your identity because for so long and for so many of us, the eating disorder became our identity. Like, who am I if I recover? And that's really scary. Like, most people are like, if you've never struggled with it, it sounds like crazy to you because you're like, why are you scared to be healthy? Like, why are you scared to get better? And it's like, because I'm losing this huge part of me. And for some of us, it's all we were. We were this, like, for me, I literally viewed myself as I'm the sick skinny girl. Like, that's who I am. I don't have anything else to offer other than sickliness. That is who I am. And to rip that away, I'm left with a blank slate, and that is dauntingly scary. There's that side of security in an identity, but I've never really talked about like the emotional comfort that comes with this little voice that's just always there, and you can always count on that voice to be there, even when it's saying and only says horrible, horrible things to you. At least you can count on it to be there. So I'm really glad he brought that up, because that is something that I haven't talked about and honestly haven't gave it much thought. At the end of the day, it's a toxic relationship you have with yourself, but this persona of the eating disorder, it kind of makes it an easier metaphor, analogy to swallow, is you're in this relationship with this eating disorder, and this eating disorder is a narcissist. Like, it will gaslight you, it will manipulate you, it will control you. And that is exactly what it's like being with an abusive, narcissistic, horrible partner. Being able to recognize it, that's really great for this individual to be able to recognize it and be like, I am in this relationship with this disorder that I find comfort in, but I also know it's killing me. And it's really sad, but acknowledgement is like the step towards processing. I wish him and every other person on the planet who is struggling nothing but absolute support and encouragement and love in this journey, and every single day just to keep fighting for your life, because whether you believe it or not, your life is worth living, and living with an eating disorder is not living at all. So keep on fighting, please.
I want to take a moment to thank this person for their willingness to be open to sharing so much detail about something so personal. So again, thank you so much. I know it wasn't easy, and I think I learned a lot more about the other side of eating disorders and how they affect men. And I hope that everyone else learned a little something, and from that everyone is able to develop a bit more sympathy and empathy for one another. Thank you.
I'm going to end the video there. Thank you so much for clicking on it. Thank you for sitting through it. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy it, you can give it a thumbs down. That is cool too. I do not mind. If you are not subscribed already, please consider subscribing, and be sure to hit the notification bell to stay notified of all future uploads. If you have any comments, questions, video suggestions, anything at all, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Be sure to go follow me over on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye!